Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending this artist lecture. My name is Joseph Velasquez. I am the head of printmaking at Florida Atlantic University. I am also the curator of the exhibition Corridos Visuales. I hope you have all had the opportunity to see this wonderful exhibition. Today's artist talk features an artist who I was fortunate enough to meet while she was an undergrad and had signed up for a woodcut workshop that I was offering through a summer project at her school. And I've watched her progression over the years and through her graduate school experience. And without further ado, I would like to welcome our visiting artist, Alicia Smith. Alicia, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello everyone. It is I, Alicia Smith. I did learn printmaking from Joseph. He is the person who instilled this love of woodblock printing in me, and something that I'm always, I think, going to be deeply appreciative of, because while I was starting undergrad, I think I wasn't really sure how to, like, what medium was best for sort of articulating my thoughts. And then when he came and he taught his workshop, I was really like, oh, this is how you do it. This is how you can truncate as much symbolism as possible into an image. And this is how you can just keep layering meaning. He talked about sort of my process of using printmaking as kind of a jumping off point, and turning those prints into sculptures, into sort of environments that I activate with performance. And so I figured I would show you all. Probably the best example of that was my piece, Descent into Mictlan, which you have the tapestry that creates that environment at Schmidt Gallery right now. So I will share my screen. For this piece, you can see the garment that I'm wearing. The back of it actually has a relief print on it. It's the cowl feathers of a vulture. And this is the tapestry that's hanging up in the gallery right now. And I created it from these woodblock prints of vultures. And I actually did a monotype of myself by painting my body red and just laying on the fabric. I also sculpted that turkey vulture mask that I'm wearing, and a friend composed this music for me with the help of a traditional Cherokee drummer. And the full dance, this is just a clip, but the full dance was choreographed by a Creek dancer, Maggie Boyer. This last shot probably, yeah, shows everything. So that's an excellent example of how I use printmaking. So again, it started out as a relief print, the vultures, and then I created the print of the vulture. I copied the composition from Descent from the Cross. When I showed the tapestry that is in the gallery right now, at a crit while I was in grad school, I was very really trying to stick to my roots of printmaking, and I had a whole lot of people insisting that I try something else or that I depart from it. And so it was really great having somebody in my class making the comment that if my prints keep getting bigger that I'm necessarily changing the environment, and that perhaps they should be activated in some way. And so I think the layering of meaning that can be done with printmaking, especially relief, it feels, just getting to take something that, as Joseph said, starts out in the 2D and take it into 3 dimensions and then even farther into 4 dimensions and adding a time-based element to it is just really powerful and is something I really love to do. I just wanted to show you guys that really quick. So I can open my little presentation also and get into more of the nitty-gritty, because I kind of already did, but okay. So I got my BFA from the University of Oklahoma, and I got my master's from the School of Visual Arts in Manhattan. I was the first person in my family to go to college, period. And so that I went, you know, and did the whole thing is pretty impressive. Got to give myself a pat on the back for that one. I'm sure there's some cycle breakers in the chat right now in the Zoom call. And it is scary, sort of embarking on something like that, something that's never been done. And you have some family who will support you and who really want you to be the one that does that. And then you have some that sort of because of time and because of circumstances don't believe it's something that's attainable. And so overcoming all of those things is, I mean, that is what cycle breakers do. Obviously, the themes of my work are the environment, social justice. I just talked about, you know, being the first person in my family to go to college. I'm first generation. On my father's side, my father was an undocumented immigrant from Jalisco, Mexico. And my ancestors, obviously something very important to me, and the sacred. So this piece is titled Teo Mama. And in this performance, this piece really does a good job at sort of explaining before something becomes an image, what it is in my mind. So Teo Mama in Nahuatl means God carrier. And it was the name that was given to our medicine men and medicine women who carried the sacred bundles from Aztlan, from their ancestral home, into what would become Mexico. And I hope when people see my work, they see or they sense grief, some air of grief. Because essentially what I'm saying with this piece, I'm recreating the seal of Mexico. I'm recreating this prophecy that when my ancestors were following these bundles into the desert, that when they saw an eagle eating a snake on a cactus, that was their sign it was safe to build their home there. And so they built it on a lake. And in this piece, I'm trying to make a comforting of myself in some ways, comforting of others, that when you're the descendant of diaspora, where is home? where is home when you've been removed from your homeland, basically. And in this piece, I'm saying it's your body. Like every cell in your body sings your ancestor's song. That resilience is something that can't be taken from us, as much as anti-immigrant rhetoric tries constantly. And this piece, I think, does that even more. Let me see if I can.
Araxini ayangu kwareni sabichu ma wandonskwa.
The language that you're hearing is the Purépecha language. My father's family is from Jalisco, Michoacan. My abuelos are buried in Guanajuato. And basically, I wanted to make a piece that really head on tackled sort of a misappropriation of our history by ICE, by the GOP, by all of these people, because you'd have senators like Senator King, who would make comments like, we can't let Mexicans into this country because they come from a violent civilization. And he used very historical terms when he said that, a violent civilization. And so it's this understanding of who we are as Indigenous people, just to the point that it can be used to dehumanize us. So it was like he was legitimately believed that like there was nothing but like apocalyptos just like running across, like jaguar paws just running across the border or something ridiculous like that. But it's true. And then you had ICE, who was hiring Nahuatl speakers, hiring Quiche speakers. And so I think that the South American, the Mexican immigrant represents something hostile to settler colonial mindset, which is they're an immigrant that's indigenous. They know who we are. They know these are our lands. They know these are our relatives, but just enough to oppress us. And so with this piece, the title of the piece is Erendira. She was a Purépecha warrior princess. And the story, I muted it, but the story that's being told in her native language is her story. When Cortés came to Tenochtitlan and he took the city, he sent a messenger managed to escape the city and got to the Purépecha's tribal lands and said what had happened, that the Tenochtitlan were dead. Her father, Erendira's father, was the chief of the Purépecha people, and he said that then we will lay down our arms. Like if he has killed the Tenochtitlan, we have no hope. Erendira didn't like this, and so the story goes that she killed a conquistador and took his horse, and that she commanded her warriors to take the rest of the horses, and they rode, killing more and more soldiers. And so for me, this is a proper appropriation of our history. This is these girls, these escaramuza girls, you know, are riding these horses. They're carrying this rebozo that like carries the baby between them, this giant shawl, and it's opening, it's deflating, it's closing, it's twisting. It could be a vein, an umbilical cord, anything like that. And they can move wherever they want. They act as shifting points on a map, but they can never be a greater distance, and they can never be completely separated. And to me, I created this piece in the last couple of years of the Trump presidency, because obviously that's when we saw the largest sort of wave of people thinking that they just could express these like extremely racist ideas. And this is my way of saying our history is a history of resistance, and nobody can take that away from us. And no matter where you are, you have that history. Let me see. I don't know what my time is right now.
Oh, you have plenty of time. We're doing really well.
Okay.
So
Okay,
we're
just
only at
checking.
12:20. Yeah. So if we would leave some time for questions, then you have 20 more minutes to
Okay.
show us everything you have.
Excellent. Okay. Let's see. Oh, well, this piece is another relief and monotype, and it's called Como la Cigara, like the cicada. I don't know if there's any Mercedes Sosa fans on the Zoom call, but it's like one of my favorite songs, you know, Tantas veces te matar. And this piece is sort of illustrating a soul retrieval ceremony, which is in our ancestral prayer technologies. It's what after something terrible happens to you, something shocking. It's believed you contract this sort of spiritual sickness called susto, like the shock. And that the only way of repairing oneself after something like that is calling the souls back to the body, because it's like after something so destructive happens, you know, your spirit shatters into a million pieces. It's like, surely I did not survive that. And so pieces of the soul go into the underworld before you do. And for that ceremony, what is done is the victim is swaddled in blankets and they're buried neck deep in the earth. And the curanderos, the people in the community, stay up all night singing to the person as they're buried in the ground. And in the song, Como la Cigara, Mercedes is saying, you know, you thought you killed me, but sort of still I rise. I fly to the sun like a cicada. Like you might have buried me in the way that these insects stay underground for, you know, sometimes 17 years in their pupal state and then emerge and survive. And that's what this piece is. This piece is titled Greed. And I made it right after I came back from Standing Rock. This was right after they had set dogs on some water protectors. And I came back and I just did this piece. This is sort of in the history of colonization, what happened before the messengers got to the Purapechas. This was when Cortez first came to Tenochtitlan, before he was able to take the city. He had attacked people in the middle of ceremony, and they knew that him and his men knew that the Nahuas were going to retaliate, of course. And so they barricaded themselves in a section of the city, present-day Mexico City. And on the night this piece is illustrating La Noche Triste, it started to rain, and he thought it would be their perfect time to escape. And so he told all of his men, you know, to get ready, and he gave them one final command. take as much gold as you can carry. And so his men loaded up on sacks and sacks of gold, and they started walking on these bridges. Like I had said in Teomama, Tenochtitlan was an island that was built on a lake. And they had these like causeways that connected the island to the mainland of Mexico. And so these men, these soldiers with their sacks of gold, started walking out really tightly ranked on these bridges. And as they were walking, a Tenochtitlan woman taking water out of the lake saw them coming, and she yelled to the temple of Huitzilopochtli for somebody to see that the Spaniards were escaping. And the priests, the medicine men, saw them, and they yelled to the jaguar warriors and the eagle warriors that the Spaniards were escaping. And they descended upon the bridge. And when they did, Cortez's men were unable to fight because of all of the gold that they were carrying. And many of them fell off of the bridge and into the lake and were unable to swim because of the weight of the gold. And so they say that Cortez turned and he saw his forces being decimated by the Indians, and he shed a single tear and he fled to Cuba. And as I said, I had just got back from Standing Rock, and I was thinking about dogs as a weapon of war, and I was also thinking a lot about greed. A lot about how the wealthy, the people behind these pipelines, really believe that their money will save them. And they don't know what they're doing. This sort of gluttony for more is what's going to kill them, is what's going to kill us all, really. So this piece is 191. And what inspired this piece was I was in New Mexico at the time, and they had found 191 horses dead on the Navajo reservation. They had come to a watering hole, a place they had known that they could always get water, but because of an unseasonably terrible drought due to climate change, when they came to this watering hole, it was just cracked clay. And so the horses started to dig, and they dug and they dug and they dug until they were too weak to pull themselves back out. And so all of these horses passed away. It reminded me of a story that I heard an ICE officer telling once. I guess there's an entire department of ICE that's entire job is repatriating bodies back to Mexico and Central America, which is already disgusting. All of this talk of border walls, but the only place on our border that does not have a border wall is the most dangerous place to cross. It's the biggest expansive desert in all of North America. But what this man said was that some of the bodies that they recovered in the desert were buried up to their waist in the sand, and that their hands were stretched out around them as if in their last moments, perhaps because of exposure, these people believed they were swimming. And so with 191, I took the painting, The Raft of Medusa by Jericho, which was a political painting about the negligence of France at the time, leaving these men to die out in the middle of the ocean. I took the painting and I replaced all of the men in the painting with these horses and put them on this indigo color field, something like water, and let them be submerged and emerged throughout the piece to sort of articulate that idea.
How long after your undergrad experience did you wait before applying to grad school, and how many schools did you apply to?
Okay, so I I think also being the first person in my family to go to college was also kind of a superpower because I think that I did not have the voice in my head that said like, oh, that's not a good idea, or that place isn't for you. Like I was like, sure, this is what you do. So ignorance is bliss in that way, I think. I waited, I think only a year or two, was just kind of working and trying to figure out if grad school was something that I wanted to do. And when I decided it for sure was after I interned for Swoon, Caledonia Curry. She really wanted me to come back to New York. I love her and she loves me. I was like, okay, so I'm going to apply. I'm going to apply to grad school. Where do you go to grad school? And I legitimately typed in Google top 10 art schools in the country. And I was like, well, I'm not getting into Harvard or Yale. So, and I just went for the next ones after that. I applied to 4 places, got accepted into, I applied to I want to say 5 places, got accepted into 4 of them, and 2 of them offered me full rides, and that was Pratt and SVA.
Nice.
Yes, so if I give any advice, it's 1, don't go anywhere that is not paying you to be there. Grad school is expensive. Do that. And also, which I think, I don't know, comes from knowing your worth for sure. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. My train of thought this morning. What was the question again?
Well, just any advice for students considering looking into graduate school, and
I would say, look at the programs, make sure that they have faculty that are doing work that you are interested in, that are doing work on topics you're interested in and mediums you're interested in, because these are your mentors. These are the people who are going to be stewarding you through the process. Also, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to ask for what you need or ask for what you want. Not having had anyone in my family had gone to school was also a hindrance, because I didn't know you could ask for things like, hey, could you waive the application fee for me? But when SVA and Pratt both offered, me equally great deals, I was like, oh God, what do I do? And one of my mother inferior, I'm an art nun. I'm in an art convent. That's also just an aside. She was like, okay, now the bidding war starts. And I was like, what on earth are you talking about? She's like, oh, you're supposed to tell each program, both of you offered me the same deal. How are you going to sweeten this up for me, basically? And I was like, no, that seems rude. I can't ask for that. I can't do that. And she was like, no, you absolutely have to, and you must. So I think applying to grad school in general is such an exercise of knowing your worth. And while it can be uncomfortable when you're from a marginalized background, because you sort of don't feel like you're entitled to those spaces or anything like that, you absolutely should overcome that by doing that. And just keep in mind, mediocre white boys are getting into Yale every single day. Keep that in mind.
Excellent. All right. So I have a 2-part question that someone asked, and someone else also kind of goes along with this. So, but first of all, did you have a 2-year or a 3-year graduate experience?
I had a 2-year.
Okay, 2-year, because for some students who are in the chat may not know, graduate schools, some have 2-year programs and some are 3 years. And a 2-year program can be very intense. Was that your experience? Was it like boom, boom, boom?
Yes.
In New York, I can't imagine.
Yeah, it was incredible. And also I think when you're picking programs, you should also be mindful about the type of program, because I did not know that at all. SVA had a very studio-based program. They wanted you in there and they wanted you working. There's some programs that are very medium-based. They're about you learning techniques and disciplines. And if you go to state schools or more regional schools, they're going to do that a lot more, and be maybe less heavy on the theory. Having said that, being from Oklahoma and going to New York City, I got called the craft girl a lot because I came in like, I've got a sculpture background and I've got a printmaking background. I like working with my hands. This is what I do. And these people were like, no, we're on some Vito Acconci shit. And we just like, we just want to have a discussion about how everybody is super cynical and nobody cares about anything. And I was just like, hey, so maybe we could be a little bit more sophisticated than that and have like an actual conversation and use these techniques that we all should have learned. So it's an asset. Going to a school, a real asset, going to a school that teaches you all of the old techniques and disciplines. They're just giving you more tools for the wheelhouse, basically.
Great.
Yeah.
So I have another student question is, with everything that's going on, the students having a hard time finding inspiration. Where do you gather your inspiration in research, and is there any advice you can give to students?
Oh my God. I think I've always been like kind of a freak, or like I wake up in the morning and I just want to learn everything about a given subject. I've always had a heavy research-based practice. And so for me, read poetry, read fiction, nonfiction, podcasts. There's so many things like that. And I think even like getting tertiary about like what subjects you're interested in, like make yourself a map. Everybody has their foundational interests, and then there are tiers of the subjects that you're interested in, and all of that is going to inform the way you're looking at sort of your chief concerns with things. And so a lot of days I wake up and I have questions from my ancestors, questions from my history, questions about the world in general. And I hunt and hunt and hunt until I find the answers, as any kind of answer I can find. And then I just tell it to myself. I just tell it to myself through that lens. And that's how I do it.
Can you speak about the way that you've immersed yourself into the culture?
Absolutely. So we were colonized the longest, like period, full stop. There's a reason why if you go to a powwow, everyone is doing plains dances, and it doesn't matter if they're Cree or if they're actually Lakota. The plains people were colonized for the shortest amount of time, and that means they were able to hold on to their songs and their dances and their stories and stuff much better than everybody else. We have lost the most. Having said that, our ancestors did something, like I could start crying right now just thinking about it, but they did something incredible. They put it in stone. Mm-hmm. They put our stories in stone. They put our rituals in stone. And so this process of recovery, I'm endlessly grateful for those artisans that did that, because sometimes it really is as simple. Finding the answer to something, finding the philosophy to something can be as simple as looking at a sculpture, looking at an ancient artifact. And also, we had ways of surviving and preserving. Curanderismo has a lot of Huehuepatli, the great medicine, Aztec medicine in it. And so we have been able to hold on to some of our songs. We have been able to hold on to some of our dances and a lot of our healing practices, thank goodness. And so really it's just been, I think probably social media. Thank God for social media, because when I started sort of having these experiences that I couldn't really articulate to anyone else besides Indigenous people, and then thankfully I was in Oklahoma of all places. And so those people were like, oh, you just need to go to your elders. Like they'll have the answers that you're looking for. I was like, where are my elders? And it's like, Facebook, Nawat learning group. And I get in there and then everybody is sharing our codexes. They're translating things. There's 1.5 million speakers of our language still in Mexico, and they're teaching people. And so immediately all of this wellspring of information just starts emerging. And so now I can grow our ancestral corn. I have corn varieties I'm about to put in the ground that are 8,000 years old that our ancestors are eating before the Spanish even came. And I could do that because I connected with somebody in Michoacan, in Guanajuato, that's like, I'll send you some corn. You want some corn? I'll send you some beans too. And so I learned my language, I learned my plants, I learned my history, everything from all of these teachers. And I'm endlessly grateful for them.
Oh, that's so beautiful. You know, we had shared before, and I knew you had the corn, and you know, the corn is so symbolic, and it's such a giant emblem, and kind of like it's been the lighthouse for the culture to find it back, because
Oof.
corn is something that is just cultivated throughout the culture, and it's so beautiful that that you're growing that. All right, does anybody else have any questions, any additional questions for Alicia? Anyone else?
Actually, I have a quick question. First of all, your talk has been so amazing. Thank you so much for doing this with us and sharing. You talked about the ritual or ceremony where you would be swaddled and buried up to the neck. I thought that was really wonderful. And you said that so people would stay with you and sing with you all through the night. Is it in the morning that you would be dug up again and feeling renewed, or?
Yes. So yeah, that's how we perform soul retrieval ceremonies, and they're still done. They're still done in rural Mexico. If a woman is sexually assaulted, if anything like that happens, her family will get all of their money together, which is already just like, that is a completely different take culturally, where like here in the United States, we treat victims a very different way. But can you imagine a situation where something like that happened to you? You went to your mother and father and you told them something terrible happened, and they were like, okay. They got together all of their money. They went out and they bought food, just tons of food, tamales, like cakes, like everything, just food. And then they went to the local healer and they said, this happened to my child. Will you heal my child? And the healer assembles 13 people, because there's 13 heavens in Aztec cosmology. And it's still like, even if it's something that these people aren't aware of, there's a reason why the number 13 is a part of this ceremony still. That is ancient. And they are eating the food and staying up with this person all night and singing to them and singing their spirit back into their body. And it's just like, this is exquisite. Like, why don't we treat people like that who are grieving and who are experiencing something like that? So
that's awesome. That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Man, that was just so powerful. I can't thank you enough for taking the time.
thank you all for having me.
All right, everybody, have a great day.